Algebra 2, what's going on? Mr. Edwards here. We are in quadratics still. Man, we've been doing quadratics for a long time. All of these parabolas and projectile motion and profits and things, and we're not done yet. We actually saved one of the tougher topics for last called the quadratic formula. It's so tough, in fact, that before I even show it to you, I'm only going to show you little pieces of it. So you saw your prerequisite skill worksheet. That's just adding numbers, and ignore that. Adding the numbers and dividing numbers, and the plus or minus thing comes in. But there's actually something before that called the discriminant. Yeah, it's a tough word. Discriminant. Discriminant. And that's what these notes are going to be about. So you have a follow-along sheet. Go ahead and get that sheet out, and then I'm going to go through the sheet with you. I'll make this as brief as possible. Be on the lookout for some extra credit. But fill out your note sheet as we go, and then you're armed with the knowledge you need. You can bring it in with you next time I see you, and we'll do some practice with it. So this is the flipped lesson. Here are your notes, and let's get to it. So here's the sheet in front of you. It says finding a discriminant. There's that word we said, discriminant. The actual discriminant, the formula for it. So we're in standard form here, ax squared plus bx plus c. The formula, sorry, that little thing up there is bugging me. To find the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, so far we've had one formula with these, and it was negative b over 2a, and that would give us the axis of symmetry. This is something different. It's still the same a's, b's, and c's, but we have a new formula. B squared minus 4ac will tell us the discriminant. It's just a single number. Okay, I'm going to put some numbers in here. I'm going to rip it through my calculator. I'm going to do some mental math. I'm going to figure it out. It's going to give me a number, and that number we call the discriminant. So let's do example 1. A is 2, B is 8, C is negative 2. So I'm going to put those numbers where they belong in my little discriminant formula. So B squared minus 4AC. Okay, so B squared minus 4AC. Now, a little Mr. Edwards trick here. What I like to do from this step is, well, either jam it in my calculator or I count how many negatives there are. If there's an even number of negatives, that just becomes a positive. So I'm going to count, here's a negative, and here's a negative. There's two of them. A negative times a negative is a positive. It makes those positive. If it was 3 negatives or just 1 negative, then they would just stay a minus sign. So from here, I have 64 plus 4 times 2 times 2, that's 16. And 64 plus 16 is 80. Done. That is the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. If I asked you what's the discriminant for this quadratic, we would say 80. I'm going to leave example 2 for you to do, something for you to do in here. Find the discriminant. You're doing it the exact same way. Jam it in your calculator and figure out what the discriminant is. Next, why are we finding this thing? Just the discriminant itself can tell us a lot about our problem, about our parabola, about our quadratic. So here are some notes. If the discriminant is positive, there are 2, and we call them real roots, 2 real intercepts, 2 real, and I'll put the word roots here. Okay, 2 real roots. If the discriminant is negative, I'm not going to put that there. If the discriminant is 0, there is exactly 1 real root. Okay, so we're writing this down on our notes. And remember, the roots are the same thing as x-intercepts. So there's 2 x-intercepts. For this problem, our discriminant, after we would do the math, would be some positive number, maybe 80, maybe something else. If the discriminant is 0, that means that there's only 1 x-intercept. It just barely kisses this line and then turns around and goes the opposite direction. Okay, that's 1 x-intercept, 1 real root. The discriminant would be 0. And that leaves us with the last one. If the discriminant is negative, any negative number, negative 2, negative 7, negative 50, there are 0 real roots. And hopefully we can see that from our graph. How many x-intercepts are there? There are no x-intercepts. Doesn't even hit the x-axis. No x-intercepts. Good. Moving on. Let's try one out. Example 3 says to find the discriminant and then use it to tell me how many and what type of roots there are. So we're just going to find the discriminant. We're putting together the 2 things we did. We're going to find the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. then we're going to look at our table and match up which one goes where. So it's b squared minus 4ac. A is a negative 2 and c is a negative 2. AC. Now I'm counting negatives. These two negatives would become a positive, 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 and this one just has to stay. So now I'm left with 8 squared, 64. 4 times 2 times 2, that's that same numbers again. This one is 16, but this time it's a minus 16. 64 minus 16 is 42? Nope, 48. Sorry, mental math, Mr. Edwards. Here we go. So that tells us the discriminant is 48. Now we come up here. Is that positive, 0, or negative? It's positive. So that means there are 2 real roots. 48, 2 real roots. We're dancing. We're done. That's all it takes. Find the discriminant, match it to the table. I'll leave example 4 for you to do, something for me to grade. Here on the next one, we can kind of work backwards with it. Just by looking at the graph, what would that mean about how many roots there are? And then what would the sign of the discriminant be? Okay, for this one, looking at it, how many x-intercepts are there? 0. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here. Which one was the 0 x-intercept? This one. That means my discriminant is negative. So I'll just say discriminant negative. That's it. For each graph, state the number and nature of the root. 0, the nature will say 0 real roots. The nature part of it, what type of number is it? Here for the next one, how many x-intercepts? 2. There are 2 real roots. What does that mean about the discriminant? Okay, 2 real roots. It's positive, so I'll just say positive. I'll leave the last one for you. Okay. Finally, the back. I want you just to do the odds or the evens. You do not have to do them all. A little choice here. You decide which column you want to work down. And we're just going to practice this. We're going to find the discriminant. And then you're going to tell me what that means about how many and what type of roots there are. I am going to do magical number 6. Okay, 6. Before I can do this, I need to get everything on one side of the equation. So I'll subtract 3, and I'll subtract 3. So my actual problem will be negative 3x squared minus 17x minus 1 equals 0. Right? I subtracted 3. 2 minus 3. Now we can go through and find the discriminant. Okay, so the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. b squared minus 4ac. Let's fill in the numbers. b is negative 17. a is negative 3. c is negative 1. Lots of negatives. This time I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to use Desmos. That's okay. Go jam this in Desmos exactly as you see it. Negative 17 squared minus 4 a c. I hit enter. I get 277. There's my discriminant. That's a positive number, so there are 2 real roots. Bam, bam, bam. That's it. You only got to do the odds or the evens. Consider yourself noted up. I gave you that extra credit. Were you paying attention? Go back and find it if you weren't. Peace.